let's stop shaming stay-at-home moms for choosing to be stay-at-home moms. There's always this narrative that floats around this app saying, hey, you can't trust your men, being a stay-at-home mom, being a trap wife, that is a huge risk you're taking. You're gambling with a lot, blah, 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 blah. Look, there's nothing wrong with choosing to stay home with your children. Women have done that for generations. Okay? Now all of a sudden you're taking this huge risk of staying home with your kids. No, you're not. Okay? You're really not. The problem is, too often women marry men who lack integrity. The problem is not the women who stay home. The problem is the men who make promises they can't keep. Okay? Because if a woman chooses to stay home with her children, 9 out of 10 times, that woman has had a long, extensive conversation with her man. Okay? Having a realistic conversation of, realistically, can I do this? The men sell the woman this story of, yeah, I got you. Stay at home with the babies. I go out and work. I can pay the bills. This is what our budget looks like. This is what our expenses are. This is our needs. This is our wants. I can do this. We can do this. Okay? So the women stay home with the full confidence that their man got them. That the promises that they told their women they're actually going to keep. Okay? It's not the woman's fault that the man ain't got no integrity and made promises he did not ever intend on keeping, or B, made promises he couldn't keep. That's not the woman's fault. Okay? So let's stop shaming women for choosing to stay home with their children. That's one. Two, let's not even gaslight women and pretend like we live in a society or economy that allows women to just freely make the decision to either stay home or go to work. Okay? Because if a woman has a child and chooses to still work, best believe you're paying for it. You're paying big time for making that decision. Where and how? You're paying at that daycare. Because we're not going to pretend like daycares isn't a second mortgage for a lot of families now. Daycares, even though they don't pay their workers crap, daycares make bank. Okay? They make bank. And the younger the children are, the more you're paying. Okay? So with that alone, you after you crunch the numbers and you see how much money you're going to be paying out a daycare within a month, and you see how much money you bring home for whatever job you're returning back to, for some women, it makes financial sense to stay home because you will be working just to pay for daycare. So yeah, it makes more financial sense for you to stay home. Also, the mom is the default parent in most cases. So if a child gets sick, who has to stay home with the child? The mom. If a child has a doctor's appointment or therapy appointments or whatever, who has to take that child to those appointments? The mom. So when you factor all of that in, it makes sense for a mom to stay home. Because there's only so many times you can leave work early. There's only so many times you can miss work before you have to make the ultimate decision to either stay on the job or walk away. So yeah, the way our society is set up, the way the economy is set up, sometimes it just makes more sense for a woman to stay home. Okay? It just does. And women shouldn't be shamed for having to make those decisions. Because no matter which side of the coin you're on, working or staying home, it's not easy. If you choose to go to work, guess what? You're choosing to hand your precious baby off to strangers, hoping that they love and care for your child even a fraction as much as you do, on top of having to hand over a good percentage of your paycheck to them every single week or every single month. And that weighs heavy on any decent mother. That weighs heavy on them. On the other side of the coin, you choosing to stay home, you're giving up your career or walking away from a job for a few years, you're putting a whole lot of trust and a whole lot of faith in your man. And if you're married, rightfully so. Because I couldn't imagine marrying somebody who I don't trust. So there's nothing wrong with you staying home and trusting that the man that you made vows to and made vows to you is actually going to hold up his end of the bargain. There's nothing wrong with trusting that the man that you have invested your whole life into is going to operate with integrity when it comes to his household and the family that he chose to build. There's nothing wrong with that. So let's stop shaming stay-at-home moms. Let's stop, okay? Because it's not always so easy to just go to work, especially when you have kids. The only women where that kind of decision is easy for is the women who don't have children. But the minute you have kids, it automatically becomes complicated and heavy on the woman.